Hey, how are you? Can I get a picture of your let's start. Yeah. Let's start showing.
We're going to be starting. We're live streaming. Someone's watching us. One person.
Yeah, one person.
At least a minute ago.
You guys, if you would share this to your personal pages and get it out there.
We're going to start in about 60 seconds. Come on in.
What's in it? What's in it? Not mine. Oh, good, we got more kids.
We are live streaming, Becky. Really? Come in and sit.
Okay, I'm gonna give you something to drink before I do.
Can you talk to you back here?
Oh, not a problem. Okay. Sure.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Please come in and have a seat.
I've got it there.
If anyone signed up to make a public comment or they would like to make a public comment and they did not sign in, please see Lana or Jim with the please see Jim with the clipboard. And he'll come get your name.
This is just the stage content. Let's see what you drink. This must be good. Relax. Yeah.
Welcome
Yeah.
to all. This is our second panel appearance meeting. How many people were here the first time? Three people. Yes, thank you for coming back. All right, So if you were here last time, you know that we asked, if you're registered to vote. Who is registered to vote?
Everybody better raise their hand.
All right, good job. Who doesn't know, what district they live in? Do you guys know? If you don't know, the top one is to register to vote. There's also flyers in the back, that you can register and mail it in. But if you want to go online, there's the link up there. And then also the second link, you can check which, district that you live in. Sorry. Alright, so we are doing things a little bit out of order compared to last time if you were here before. So I want you guys to be thinking about your biggest concern right now with the board, the school board. What brought you here today? But what was it? Because we're going to give time to ask questions later, so we want to know what your concern is, what your biggest concern is, what brought you here. The first thing, there are a couple of speakers. We can start with Jessica. Yeah.
Hello, thank you for coming out. I spoke at the last school board meeting, and you probably have heard of my son Noah's story about I've been battling a while for his medical mask exemption. We did have a win with it, and the principal finally approved it. It only took speaking at 7 school board meetings and a protest rally on school property, filing a grievance against the principal, and having over 50 people bombard her with emails advocating for Noah. So Wake County, has not really approved very many mask exemptions at all. So that was a win. He started Monday without a mask in school. The other part of it that is he has to sit in the back of the classroom, and it's the isolation. So the mental health aspect, it's not going to fix what Noah needs. So I still have a daughter, masked in school. Every other child is masked in school. So this battle is not over until we cross the finish line and get every child unmasked. So I just want to, I couldn't have done it with all these people up here supporting me, and so anyways, that's short, sweet tonight. So good.
All right, and we also have an update from Jim. Are you ready to speak or no?
Good evening. If you'd all bow your heads for a minute. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this glorious day and allowing us to see you in all that we do. Please give us strength and power to carry through your message with love and smiling faces for our kids. In your name we pray.
So, just for ground rules, be polite to each other. If you don't agree with somebody that's up here speaking, it doesn't take a lot to keep it classy. Just don't shout out while someone's speaking. You're allowed to hold signs if you want, as long as you're not dancing and twirling with it. And yeah, so we'll be good. And also, I just wanted to let you guys know that some of the people up here are going to be coming and going because of the board meeting across the street. We still want to have impact over there, so a few people, were randomly selected to be the chosen one to go over, and so that is why if you see people going up and down, that's why. So then I would like to introduce also Jax. Where is it? Yeah. Jax is going to share. I don't know. He'll tell you about it.
Hey guys, I don't know if you were here last time. I'm Jax Myers. I was arrested for opening my shop back when all this mess first started. I am here to just broadcast to you to know your rights. Know your constitutional rights. They were given to every one of you at birth. And if you know them, they cannot mess with you. It gives you enough power that having a talk with my daughter right here in the front row empowered her to use her First Amendment rights to freedom of speech, to put out flyers in her school and say, listen, you guys can't stop me. You want to call my dad? We'll bring charges if we got to bring charges, but these are my rights and you can't stop on them. It's very, very important that freedom is not free. And I would just like to say that on the outside of maximum fear is absolute freedom. Fear is a lie. The fear that they've instilled in us over the last 2 years has prevented lots of adults from standing up and doing the job that no child should have to do. And this is about 160,000 kids who can't smile, who can't see facial expressions, and their constitutional rights have been stripped away. So I just encourage all of you to take a stand so that our children don't have to fight this fight. It's our job. We let it get this way. Thank you.
Hello, okay.
Chad Stahl.
Hello again, everybody. I guess this is just kind of like who we are. My name is Chad. Last name is Stahl. Hi. I guess I'm really appreciative of this opportunity and what we're doing with this effort to really just bring information to the parents in our community, into our county. We're streaming now, so hopefully this will even help bring information across the state and even to other states if they need it. What I have found over the last 6 to 7 months is a lot of the information is absolutely public. It's published, it's very transparent. The breakdown is who's delivering the message, who's delivering the data. That has always been what has frustrated me, because I look at the different reports, I look at the statistics. One example is on the emergency department admittance report. They have a respiratory illness admittance thing that they do regularly. And a lot of the times when there would be these high spikes of emergency department admittances, COVID would only be 5%, 6%, 8%. I think on the highest peak that we had just a few weeks ago, COVID as an isolated virus was only 14 or 15%. So yes, it's a thing, but it's truly a sliver of the illnesses that ail us on a regular basis throughout all of history. So, having that perspective and having that knowledge would help reduce some of the fear. So for me, I think it all kind of plays hand in hand. Whoever's delivering the message, what's the purpose of it? Is it to scare you? Is it to scare your child? Is it to scare your neighbor? Or is it to give you solid information so that you can make the best decisions for yourself and your children and your families? So I'm glad to be a part of this. Thank you once again. And I will pass it over to Julie now.
Hey y'all. I didn't really write anything for this meeting. What I have written is what I just said across the street. Who in here was over there just now? Has everybody already heard it? Okay.
It was good.
So,
Very good.
everybody heard it except for some people out here. So I won't go through all that. We know what we want. We want optional masks, period. We want the choice. We demand it. It's our right. It's our kids. So we want to end the mask now. We want it done today, not tomorrow. We prefer it to be done today. Hopefully they heard us screaming loudly. So that's really all I have to say. I don't have a whole lot this time. Thank you guys.
Hi everyone, it's really great to see you, familiar faces again this evening and new faces. My name is Holly Higgins-Welcher and I'm a Wade County resident. I have a 9-year-old in the 3rd grade and a 2.5-year-old who I shared is not seen the face of the caregiver in childcare for the last 2 years, which is just really a travesty at this point. And last time I talked to you about informed consent and the importance of that with emergency use authorization measures and the fact that our children are being experimented on without your permission, without your consent. And this is not only immoral, unethical, it is illegal and criminal. And I've been pushing, I just want to share some successes. I've been pushing with informed consent with both the child care that I work with to say if you're going to require these on toddlers, which she told me my toddler would have to come back and wear a mask because the health consultant told her so, mandated her. And I said, well, I'd like to see the informed consent. And so we had a really productive conversation. And I sat down with the toolkit and she asked the health consultant, what is informed consent? Do you have an informed consent form I can give to this parent? And the health consultant didn't know what informed consent was. So who was mandating the emergency measure. So I think that it's about having these conversations, as Chad has mentioned with the toolkit, as we've all talked about, Jessica has had with the principal, and just, you know, a lot of people will, sometimes some people say to me, well, just give them grace, Holly. Their intentions are good. Their intentions are good. And you know what? It's time to stop giving the adults who are abusing children grace. It's time for the children to receive the grace. Because the children have been used as human shields for the last 2 years for a burden that was never theirs to bear, for an illness that statistically does not impact them. And if we were following this quote unquote science, they would be the first to be unmasked because they're the first to not be affected, and that's not happening. And I know at this point I'm preaching to the choir, but tonight I did want to talk to you just about one thing. I want to give you a little bit of brain development science for you, okay? And I'm going to stand up so you can see this. My background is neuroscience and mental health. As many of you have heard me, a broken record if you listen to the Wade County School Board. But I want you to imagine, you know, a lot of people will say to you, it's just a mask, right? Kids are used to it now. They're fine. They're happy. They're doing all right. Well, it's not just a mask, right, to a children who's experiencing trauma. But it's not just a mask to any of us, because here's the thing, when you, at this point now, you've walked around and you've seen people in masks, and you're no longer like, oh, a mask, I'm getting robbed, or oh, it's scary, or, but there was a reason that several years ago, we decided to ban masks of costumes, okay? It's because of research that it's scary for young children. And this is because the brain reconciles, when the child brain can't reconcile the face of an adult or a peer, it triggers what's called the amygdala, okay? This is the brainstem part of the brain. And this is akin to a sense of fear, okay? And it says anxiety. This is your fight or flight. This is your brain, the bottom brainstem right here. And when this part is activated, where my wrist is, this front part, the prefrontal cortex, is not engaged. It can't open, right? We need children's brains to be open, like this, the top part of the brain. When they're triggered by fear, they can't reconcile the world around them. Fear, fear, fear. So no learning can happen because the prefrontal cortex, this front part, is closed. These two pieces don't operate together. Before a child can even look at an adult and say, okay, now I'm used to that, seeing this mask, the brain decides before the cognitive process decides that this is normal. So this is happening 1,000 times a day, that your child's amygdala and brainstem is being triggered. The body keeps score of that stress. It's called toxic stress when this happens. So even though we're saying things like, oh, they're used to it, the brain never gets used to it. You can try to outsmart your brain, but the brain and the body remembers. So just a little brain lesson for you today. We want these prefrontal cortexes open We want to invest in those healthy relationships, as much normalcy as possible that you can give your kids. So that's protected factor relationships and keep helping them be healthy and thrive. So thank you again for being here. I know went a little bit over, I'm sorry, but thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky with Hobbs, and
I just want to say Becky is running for school board in District 4. And so again, District 4. And also to point out, that is the district where Craftston artists pretended to live. And Becky really does live there. That's where she actually lives. She didn't sign a lease after the fact. It wasn't dated until 11/8, election day. So she was one of the contestants, and the board, didn't get what they want, which was Craftston artists. And so they opened it back up to the public. Seems a little manipulative. Here's Becky.
I won't go off on the manipulation of the school board because, well, yeah. I actually want to start off with how many of you have been in Wake County for more than 15 years? Any more than 20 years? Okay, so those who are over the 20-year mark, what do you think about the school systems then versus the school systems now?
They suck now.
Pretty much so. Well, unfortunately, I go back further than that. Yes, they truly suck. So, as a kid, as a child, my parents were always volunteering on the school campus, always doing stuff with us. They were welcome. They helped landscape. They did tons of stuff. And you know what? I started doing the same thing. My kids started entering school systems in 2012. Been at the same elementary school, which as a military brat, that is like mind-boggling to me. I was in the PTA, did all the volunteer work, organized their fundraisers, did what we called yard mob because I like landscaping. So I landscaped our school. Then COVID hit. So, how many parents are now allowed back on campus? Ooh, that's a whole lot. I went from a principal who I had his cell phone number and we would text back and forth to he doesn't talk to me anymore. Because I don't like things like my daughter being sent home because she had a headache. So she lost 5 days of school, no educational support or anything like that. But, they talked across the street about learning loss. I hate to admit it, but my two boys in the 2021 school year, they both failed 2 core classes. They were both struggling with virtual. It just wasn't working. And I know they went back to school in March, but it was too late. It was too little too late. So I pulled them and they're homeschooled now. My daughter is the only one left in the Wake County public school system. But the school system is not recognizing that. They continue with these policies that ignore education. And that's the purpose of the school system, is to educate. And they're focusing on these social problems, on medical problems, which they should have nothing to do with. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of statistics, because I like statistics, I'm weird that way. For the 2019-2020 school year, so that's the year that got cut short due to COVID, Wake County Public School System had 162,183 students. Anybody know what it was for the 2021 school year?
3,000.
Very close, 158,402. It's a decrease of about 3,700 students, about negative 2.5%. Homeschools in 2019-20 was 13,575 students. It went up to 16,347 students. Of course, this current school year stats aren't out, but I have a suspicion that the school system is still declining and other sources are going to be increasing. But we need to make the school system, public school system, a place that kids want to go and a place that kids are welcome. Because right now, if you don't march to their drum, they want to shame you and kick you out. And we can't have this anymore. We can't allow that that political bullying that's going on in the systems.
Hello, everyone. My name is Russell Lichtenstein. Here in just the father capacity. That's what drove me to go to my first school board meeting. Some of the things I've noticed lately, I talked with one of the school board members at lunch actually, and I was telling her that every morning I drive by and I see kids with masks on their face at the bus stops. She was like, I can't believe it. I've never seen that. Yeah, I can honestly say that I was not surprised to hear her say that. But, you know, and I mentioned to my daughter what we're trying to do, get masks off ASAP. And unfortunately, it seems like it's become kind of second nature. You know, you put your shoes on in the morning, you get your jacket on, you get your mask on. And to me, that is scary because now they've kind of achieved their goal, if you will. And to me, that's not okay. You know, so I even see, you know, I met someone the other day and they showed me the picture on their phone and it was them with their son, both with masks on. To me, that's, something's not right there. You know, you should be at least to see your face if you're, you know, you're with your son or whatever. Or like when I went to Disney World last year, they wouldn't let her take our masks down and take pictures with my kids. I'm like, you're nuts. This is my one trip to Disney World. I'm not having mask pictures of my kids. So my point is that it's getting to the point where it's second nature, and that's dangerous. We need to, even more imperative now that we get these off. You know, but we're a bunch of other things, pardon me. But, you know, it hasn't been about science for a very long time. It's political. The fact that now they're saying, oh, just a couple more weeks, to me, that's kind of, for them to just stop it all of a sudden now that the tool gets changed, we kind of have to admit that they were wrong. And I don't think they want to do that. So rather, they'll just kind of trickle it out and then, you know, coincide with perhaps the State of the Union address. Who knows? Something like that might happen. But I'm done. I'm tired of being a pawn. I'm tired of my kids being pawns. That's why I've been here with all my fellow patriots up here. And I'm willing to do whatever I can to get these masks off my kids. And I'm pretty sure that's why you folks are here. Enough's enough. One other thing I'd like to say about voting, these people that we vote in, we have got to hold them accountable. And we've got to say that this kind of thing never happens again. We have a parental Bill of Rights. You know, we talk with them, we have town halls. It's got to be involved in it. It's up to us to be involved in that. We cannot just let it be. Just like if I'm not involved with my school board, someone else will be. If I'm not involved with my kids, and I just send them off and see them at the end of the day, and I'm not involved, someone else will be. And nowadays, it's not objective teachers. They inculcate you kids with their ideas and some of their personal things, and personally, I don't think should happen. But my point is this. Just like with the school board, same thing with the people we vote in come November, because it's going to be very important. So thank you again for coming in.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Taylor, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of background as to how I met some of the people up here. Back in March of 2020, you know, we had started hearing about COVID in November, December of 2019 when it was in the Far East. We knew that it would be coming here. March of 2020 was when it actually officially came to North Carolina that we were aware of. April of 2020, things just weren't sounding right. Things weren't looking right. So I started looking at all the statistics and crunching all the numbers on my own, pushing the NCDHHS to put out more statistics on their website at that time than what there was. I began reporting these statistics on social media, which is where I met a lot of you. I was very careful at not telling people what my bias was, what my thought process was on what the statistics were saying. I just wanted to put them out there for parents and people to see what they were. Here we are, almost 2 years later, and we can see that everything that I was basically saying was coming to fruition, right? So here we are, the masks are on our kids, we want them off. I began speaking at school board meetings back during reassignment, okay? Back when there was such a big fight at the old Apex High School that they had to call the police and were willing to take parents out. That was several years ago. Then I began speaking at the school board meetings to get the schools open. There's no reason why we need any more new data, whether it's in the Far East, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Florida, New York, California. All of the curves look the same. Doesn't matter what the mitigation process is. It does not matter. The NPIs, which you'll hear, it does not matter. So you are here tonight. We're going to give you information in a little bit to equip you and your students to be able to peacefully protest on a specific day and time together to ensure that Wake County gets the masks off of our kids. Okay.
All right, and this is Steve Bergstrom, and he is actually also running for school board against Mahaffey. So we need to cheer him on.
I just feel better standing and talking than sitting and talking. I'm comfortable. We have an important election coming up this year for various reasons. Parents have finally been made aware of all of the issues that are going on in Wake County Public Schools. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that we've run into. So why is this election more important than I would say any other? Well, let's say that this school board bows to the public outcry over masks on our children's faces. And let's say they get rid of the mandates here in the next few weeks or months. Do you trust this school board to continue to advocate for parents or listen to parents? I don't. Those like Tracy and others who have been intimately involved and made aware of what goes on with the school board behind the scenes, those who have interacted personally with a lot of these school board members, Mahaffey in particular, who had to apologize during a debate a couple years ago with me to neighborhoods that she had reassigned. She apologized in the middle of a Zoom debate. And these are the people that have control over our kids' education right now. And we have to go into the polls understanding that. Now, this board is looking to move from 2-year terms, where the entire board is elected every 2 years, to staggered 4-year terms after 2022. They are doing everything that they can to avoid accountability for their actions and accountability to you, the parent. So we need to make sure that we get out this information that Tracy talks about, that all these panelists talk about, that the vast majority of parents are complaining about. It can't just be complaining. It needs to move into activism. It needs to move into getting out the vote here in Wake County so that we can return to a semblance of normalcy, of quality education here in Wake County. Because I have to imagine that the majority of you and the majority of us, I know that I moved here because I thought Wake County schools represented what would be the gold standard for education and public education in the United States. We're the 15th largest in the country. We're the largest in North Carolina. And yet we are failing our students. Now, learning loss is what we have to deal with after the masks come off. I'll give you some 2020 numbers. And these numbers have decreased by 10 to 12% in the last 2 years. In 4th grade in the state of North Carolina, only 63% of all students were proficient in reading and math. That number has dropped below 50% this year. So 2022 levels are below 50% proficient in reading and math in North Carolina. It's 12% for African American students. 12%. And they want to spend $9 million on an Office of Equity Affairs. Here's some better equity. Let's make sure that all of our students are proficient in reading and math. Let's divert all these ridiculous millions of dollars that we spend on these programs that are ineffective, that don't work, and let's make sure that we're getting our students back up to par, back up to where they can read and write and do math, so that they can provide a future for themselves and be equipped for the future. They got rid of the after-school learning program. Why? I don't know. But we need after-school learning after 2 years of being shut down. We need resources, and we need smart leaders, dedicated leaders, principled leaders, who are going to help lead Wake County into a better future for education. So that's why I'm running. I know that's why many people up here are making the choice to run. And I know that's why other people are wanting to run in Wake County, because we believe in principled leadership that is going to bring education back to quality here in Wake County. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. Can I make one little plug? I love this opportunity to listen to parents. We have a parent roundtable on Thursday at Sophie's Bar and Grill on the 17th, where we're going to do Q&A with parents, and we want to hear from your experiences. I hope that you guys keep doing this, because this is the opportunity that you're missing out over there, is to hear from parents, hear about your concerns, hear about your stories, and then implement policy that makes sense so that we can better the education here in Wake County. So I'm Steve Bergstrom. I'm really glad to be here, and really great being up here with this group of patriots and all these parents.
There are seats up here, we won't fight. Hi, I'm Kate Long, also known as an accused QAnon supporter. A patriot up here with me forwarded a video that I watched over the weekend, and it's an hour and a half long. Thanks, Chats. It was very powerful, very inspiring. It brought tears to my eyes. I'm going to play a small clip. Oh wait, pause real quick. So this, before we play this clip, she was telling stories about patriots like Jax who refused to close their businesses. All right, Russell. Yeah.
You might be looking at me and saying, Susanna, all these people went to jail. How is this to encourage them? Because if you don't believe it, no one will respond. You'll never have the courage to follow through. And if you don't know that it's worth it, you'll never have the courage to change it. Life, fortune, safety, is what's been pledged for us.
Louder, please.
Benjamin Franklin said, we'll hang separately or we'll hang together, but we'll surely hang. Whether that was metaphorically or literally, it still means the same thing. When the government can shut down your business, is that not hanging your family? When the government can impose unconstitutional restrictions that violate the very core of your natural rights, is not that a metaphorical hanging of your rights?
So my parents fled Vietnam when I was 2, packed up my siblings in a boat with many other people, not knowing what the future looks like. We could have died in the Pacific Ocean, but they took risks. They had to. Either you die with communists or you cross the Pacific Ocean. I went on this journey because of my daughter. She fell into depression like most of our children did since this pandemic. And I put her back to school, and it was a struggle. Don't let these morons instill fear. Don't let them stop you from attending board meetings. People may think that it's a waste of time. It's not, because you're letting them know we're awake and they're not to do anything anymore because we're watching them. I'm not afraid. I have 2 children, nieces, nephews, your children, children who are not related to me, and I'm fighting for them. And I hope that you guys will stand with us. Thank you for coming.
All right, so remember earlier I asked you what your biggest concern with the board was. So I think you probably heard a thread. It's probably the same thread that brought you here. And some things that I have read recently talk about, this 2 more weeks. This might end in 2 more weeks, and that's why we witnessed the rally across the street to let the board know that we wanted to vote today. But Lindsay, she didn't want to vote today. She could, but she didn't want to. They could have voted, but they didn't want to. They don't care. They do not care at all. They don't want to care. They don't try to care. They don't listen. It's clear to me that the symptoms that you're thinking about, what's wrong with the board, the answer to that is replacing them. So when the masks come off in 2 more weeks, just like 2 weeks to slow the spread, I'm not going to stop. I just want you to know. Like, I will be here. I will be here. I will be over there. I will be in their face. They do not like me. They do not like my emails. I do not care. We need to email them and be in their face. Because, I know they listen secretly, but there's no other way to impact the situation than to vote them out. Nothing's going to change if all of these individuals are still there after November 8th. There's really no one to blame but yourself and your neighbor. We're going to be in the same scenario, but it will look different in the future, over and over and over and over. It's time for people to stand up. I understand it's difficult, and you guys were here, so you probably have already entertained that. What brought me here, it took me a long time to come. My first meeting ever in my whole life was September 7th last year, and I am the one that poured the water on the table. Yeah. And I told them that it wasn't their job to protect my child. It's still not their job. But I came because I had been thinking, surely this will end. Surely this will end after the summer. Surely they won't continue this on while they have football stadiums open, et cetera, et cetera. Surely common sense would tell you that this would end, but no. In fact, the reason actually that brought me was that they were going to reinstitute masks at recess. And it was 90 degrees outside, and I was like, my son is going to have sweat. And you breathe out a tablespoon of fluid every hour. So fluid on your mask, dirt, et cetera, you're going to be breathing all that in. So gross. So that is what led me to pour water on the table. And I have gone to every home survey meeting since, probably 99% of them, because it's just too much fun not to know. And one more thing I did want to say is so our first meeting was 2 weeks ago, and I want people to know that I asked individuals from other viewpoints to come and sit on the panel, other parents, and they declined. I asked several people, and they declined. So, to the people who may think, oh, this is an echo chamber, you're free to come. Yeah. So, and I guess I wanted to also point out that this quarantine is not a law. I think we're all starting to see that we need to come out and speak instead of just hiding behind a keyboard. And there's those that will say, personal freedom over the good of the group. So they say it like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you want your personal freedom over the good of the group. And this is me. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I want my personal freedom more than the group. This isn't Ebola. There's a 99% survival rate. We're in America. This is not Ebola. It's been 2 years. We're done with patience and grace. It's it. It's time to be done with this. And so I encourage you all to also stand up and speak how you feel. And I will always choose personal freedom over the good of the group, unless it's Ebola. Then which all right. So Dr.
They're live. They're live.
Yeah.
Are the speakers?
Yes, there are at least 3 or 4.
Constantly bombarded with. I commend you for firmly adhering to the guidance set forth by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, led by Dr. Betsy Tilson, the State Health Director and Chief Medical Officer. Additionally, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC both continue to recommend universal masking in school. Our medical leaders have spoken, and their message is crystal clear. Masking in schools is still necessary.
Why?
School board representatives, I implore you to continue consistently following the guidance set forth from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. When they find that masking in schools is no longer necessary, then we can all celebrate. But until then, I, along with the parents in Wake County, will support your vote to continue the mask mandate in Wake County Public Schools. Thank you.
Okay, so real quick, Shelley's gonna speak, so I'm gonna be quiet.
Shelley Peel.
While she's coming in, I want you to know that masks have been off of people in Florida all year. Delta and Omicron, they've been fine.
Hello. Your policies, your decisions, and your legacy is all built on a house of cards. So first, earlier this year, you limited meeting attendance, literally pushing parents out in the cold. You tried to elect a board member who didn't live in the district. You voted to keep mask mandates when 2 vaccinated and mask-wearing board members had COVID. You allowed books with sexually explicit material to remain on bookshelves, hiding under the guise that we're anti-LGBTQ. We're not. Paul Coe gained national attention when he proposed masking toddlers to help prepare them for future mask wearing. When parents were depicted as conspiracy theorists, you liked it, and then villainized us for hate speech. You obviously have the media on your side, who shamefully tried to affiliate apparent activism with QAnon. It has come to our attention that school staff are asked to take a survey to disclose their private health information without their ability to keep their information private. In good faith and consideration, I want you all to hear us. We will fight for you. Everyone deserves equal justice for our children and for you. The world around you is finally realizing that we, the parents, were right all along. Your house of cards is falling. CDC says cloth masks have little effect. DHS removed school quarantine, and now the county mask mandates are falling like dominoes. Harnett County, our neighbor, they've been mask optional since October. They're still there. House Speaker Moore filed legislation to make masks optional statewide. Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Nevada, New Jersey, Oregon recently lifted statewide school mask mandates. The New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and the Atlantic all report masking children need to end. Even Dr. Daniel Benjamin, Duke pediatric infectious disease expert, says school districts should reconsider mask mandates. So you now have permission to do the right thing. Otherwise, you are perpetuating the harm that you've already caused our children. You can no longer say you didn't know. We, the parents, demand mask mandates end permanently and immediately with no stipulations. The stipulations have been met. Cases per 100,000 doesn't matter because COVID has mutated, making it much less severe. Vaccine rates don't matter when you aren't even including herd immunity. The percent positivity doesn't matter when the harm of wearing masks far outweighs the benefits. When we're forcing kids who are the least susceptible to pay the greatest price, when the rest of society's moved on, I'm here to tell you it is okay. It's time to free the smiles.
There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside.
That's my 9-year-old, well, 8 at the time, last May, as a poetry class learning thing, and that poem resonated with me then as it resonates with me now. And I'm sure it has to resonate with you guys also. That voice that is inside of each and every single one of us has to, at some point in time, be heard. The last 2 years, this board has utilized this education system to put the burden of a virus on the backs of children for the last 2 years. You have disregarded every other responsibility that you have as a board of education. You have stripped education away from children. You have stripped their access of education away from children. And all for what? To protect them from what? From a virus that does not even hurt them, does not even harm them. I'm happy to see that the toolkit has now adopted. That has been your crutch for the last 2 years, right? Oh, well, the toolkit, the guidance. Okay, well, now the guidance says, guess what? Children are okay around each other, whether they have it, they don't have it, as long as they're not asymptomatic, then the children are okay. So now that the toolkit has updated, where you don't have to restrict them, you don't have to keep them out of schools, you don't have to keep them home, you don't have to do that stuff. What will be your next excuse? Jim Martin in September said, this virus is not something that's deadly to children, but there are lots of viruses that he doesn't want them to get. He doesn't want kids to be sick at all. So what does that mean? Is that a belief that this board is going to follow? The town of Cary has said, you know what, we don't worry about the masks anymore. The toolkit is no longer going to restrict access to education based on an optional versus a required mask setting. So what now? Are you going to vote and say, well, Jim Martin says let's mask these kids forever, so let's support him and let's support that effort? Is that what you're going to do? Is that where we are right now? That you're going to take the belief of an ideologue and put that on the backs of the children in Wake County? Is that really your intentions? Are you going to wait for the political parties now to come and be the hero for all the children? Start writing laws to remind us that our kids are always free? Is that what's needed? You guys could make a huge difference right now. The guidance supports it. Please do the right thing.
Our next speaker
I'm here to address this board and your actions that you've taken during this pandemic. I want to start by reading a quote from the United States Constitution. The power under the Constitution will always be in the people. It is entrusted for certain defined purposes and for a certain limited period to representatives of their own choosing. And whenever it is executed contrary to their interests or not agreeable to their wishes, their servants can and undoubtedly will be recalled. George Washington. With that, thank you for showing up tonight. After all, you work for we, the people. As a resident and community member of Wake County, I realize that it is my duty to show up for the parents and the students and to stand in unity to put an end to this. I was born in a communist country and I was raised in a post-communist society, and one that I will do everything in my power to protect the children of Wake County from. Many people like myself run away from third world countries and we run to the United States of America. Why? Because freedom. Freedom from oppression, freedom from suppression, and freedom of expression. The North Carolina Constitution also states the following in the Declaration of Rights, Section 15. The people have a right to the privilege of education, and it is the duty of the state to guard and maintain that right. In order to not violate Section 15, you need to put an end to, you need to unmask our children, you need to put an end to the unconstitutional mandates, and you need to stop the child abuse. You need to choose children and their education over money and power. With that, $333 million. Does that ring the bell? ESSER funds, elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. It's time that you let the parents and children of Wake County know that you've sold our children and their education for $333 million. The deadline for the third round is September 30th, 2024. These funds get applied to mental health services, learning loss, health preventions and precautions for COVID-19, and so much more. So when parents stand up here and pour their hearts out about their children and mental health, it's music to your ears, right? Because it's a checkbox for you to get that money. Masks don't work. Parents decide what's best, not you. And our children deserve the freedom and liberty that you enjoyed when you were growing up. If this is still a pandemic, I will ask this again. How many deaths? We, the people, will stand up. We, the people, will not back down. And mark my words, the children will win this. And we will win before November 8th. The greatest victory is one that doesn't desire self-interest. We, the people, are here, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you.
You're on fire, Chad. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zach Campbell. I've been a bus driver since October 2019. I'm not here to talk, I'm here to talk about working at Wake County. All right, so I'd just like to give a general rundown of my day-to-day activities. I think my work is valuable and so deserves a living wage. I do not currently get or earn a living wage. All right, 5 a.m., wake up. 5:30, leave for work. 6:00.
We all interested in bus driver?
We did that on purpose, because we kind of had heard what you had to say, before. Like I said, we are going to give you the opportunity, we're going to equip you tonight with the ability to, help your child, walk out or walk in without a mask. We just timing wise, we need to, I need Holly to come back too, because she and I were gonna be speaking kind of together. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is, Shelley Peel just mentioned how, Danny Benjamin with the ABC Science Collaborative sat there and said in the WRAL interview that it was fine to get the masks out to kids. Not sure if you're aware of the fact that ABC Science Collaborative, who he is affiliated with, who he is now getting, I think it's $220 million in funding to study our children. They just dropped a study yesterday basically saying masks work. Again, this is strike number 4. They said that they studied mask optional counties. They had 9 to 10 times more mask required counties than they did mask optional counties. The bottom line is they don't have a control group. Again, this is the 4th study that they released, okay? That's number 1. That's the first point that I got from reading this slideshow. Second point that I got was they studied these groups of people for 1 week. 1 week. And they didn't describe who gave the data and what week that was. So one county in Florida may have given information for a week in September of last year. Another county could have given one from January of last year. Okay, so we're talking about different strains of the virus, and we know that the virus has changed a lot, right? So I encourage you to get a hold of that information. I'll see if I can post it somewhere where everybody can access it. Again, it's the actual slideshow from the presentation that they gave. And then once we get the actual link to the study, we'll post that as well so that you can read that information and think of it what you will. We want you to be able to do the interpretation. I'm not going to tell you how to interpret things, right?
Good evening, it's Lana Witt, yes. Thank you for opening the floor for public comment. Many times I've asked you your greatest fear. My greatest fear is an unending leadership vacuum that creates a spectatorship and leads to a dictatorship. Wake County Public School Board members, as elected leaders, your role is to lead. Since 14 days to flatten the curve began, you've literally hidden behind screens, desks, and masks. Limited parental attendance at meetings, discouraged parent involvement in school buildings, classrooms, and taken no ownership of the disaster you continue creating. Mental health problems continue to skyrocket. Academic outcomes continue to plummet. You've hidden behind a politicized toolkit that encourages educators to focus on potentially asymptomatic students, testing, tracking, and tracing of COVID in order to exclude students from in-person instruction instead of focusing on academic inquiry in reading, writing, math, and science. You allow yourselves to be used as political tools and our students to be stripped of their right to a sound basic education promised in our North Carolina Constitution. Instead of leading, creating, and participating in innovative solutions, you take the concept of liberty and freedom our country was founded on, and you turn them upside down. In past meetings, our new Vice Chair Haggerty accused parents of using national talking points. I assure you, no one assists us with talking points, Vice Chair Haggerty. For these meetings, which so many of us have faithfully attended since the meetings opened to the public in late spring, every talking point comes straight from interactions and stories of families in this school district. For the first time since I've been attending since late spring, at the school reassignment meeting, board members left their chairs at the round table to come out among the parents for the first time and hear our concerns. Many of us have asked for that compassion and interest regarding our concerns for months. Now, instead of waiting for you to discover taxation with representation, we have begun meeting across the street, creating an open forum for parents to get involved and work toward the being heard and action taken on our behalf is common to every human. Numerous North Carolina school districts in our entire nation are leading in the area of unmasking and stopping the suppression of parent and student options. Union County remains the highest ranking academic school district in our state, while Wake County, the 10th largest school district in the nation, continues to be masked.
For 18 months, our Wake County Public School community navigates with patience the limited transparency of this policy-making board. My question remains, where's the leadership in the 10th largest school district in these United States of America? Are schools the places we want medical procedures and medical devices? What's the exit strategy? Thank you. Our next speaker is Holly Whitfield.
Hello, good evening. Dr. Higgins-Wilcher, Wake County residents, good to be here with you again. The fact that we're still here a year later defending our children from these emergency measures is a reflection on each of you. Over a year-long emergency use authorization mandates and therefore investigational experimental measures qualify as illegal and unethical experimentation on children even before their well-documented proof of damage and harm, which makes the mandates outrageous. At this point, you must be willfully ignoring the evidence these emergency measures have caused children, the harm that they've caused children. Did you know that in mandating these medical interventions and therefore practicing medicine, you have an ethical obligation to the Hippocratic Oath to first do no harm? Two striking and ethical values in using human subjects in experimentation are beneficence, the act of doing good, and non-maleficence, preventing harm. Question: where is the data you've collected on your human subjects since beginning this experiment? Where's the data that shows none of these measures have caused harm to children? You should have over a year's worth of data over nearly 150,000 human subjects at this point. No data? Okay, well, I have data, and because I can, I will share. Here's some numbers for you. Let's start with zero. Zero, the number of scientific RCT studies that exist showing the benefit, efficacy, or safety of prolonged mask usage in the pediatric population or any population. 15, the number of critical developmental milestones missed on average by our children over the last 2 years. There are over 400 studies of well-documented measure of inefficacy and harm to children. And this data, add this data to the anecdotal data of the gross loss of livelihood, along with outbreak of social phobia, social anxiety, cognitive distortions, and chronic depression in the pediatric population. These aren't coming from the pathogen, rather they're coming from being treated, children being treated like a pathogen. The saddest part of this data is that their bodies keep a score of all the harms. From 2 years, their little bodies have kept the score of being told they're sick until proven healthy. For 2 years, the cells have kept score as we've suffocated them all day, so they won't hypothetically kill the grandmother. For 2 years, we've treated them as vectors of disease instead of human beings with physical, social, and emotional needs. For 2 years, we've treated them as a threat to society before they were children. For 2 years, we've used them as human shields to bear the burden that was never theirs to hold. Their bodies keep score. They don't forget. You see, trauma isn't just a thing. It's not even stored in one place in the body. It's stored in the nervous system, the psyche, the brain, and other times it's purely in the depths of the unconscious. What if I told you I already told you what was going to happen? You didn't listen. For a year, I've come to you repeatedly with warnings describing the details of the crisis to come, and it's all come true. The pediatric mental health crisis is here, and so we have 2 years of sensory deprivation, 2 years of social neglect with the complete bastardization of the scientific method. Your condescending admonitions of us to follow the science should tell you by now the science is on the side of children to be mask-free. They should have been the first to have these measures lifted and not the last. You can keep calling us names. We're not going to stop fighting for them. We're loving parents who care for our children. All we want is to make the choices we believe are best for them. Please immediately cease and desist your policies requiring emergency use measures.
Good evening, my name is Christelle Barron, and I'm one of the librarians at Knightsville High School. I'm a master's degree in library science. I've been teaching for over 20 years. I'm a national board certified.
Does anyone know, has Ashley Sechel spoken yet? I know she's 12, so is she probably the next person then?
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't want to start until we hear Ashley because she is awesome. She's great at rallying the people. She has been just phenomenal. She and Lynn have kind of been the glue that's kept all of us together. Okay, but one of the things that I did want to ask you is how many in the room have elementary children? Okay, how many have middle school aged children? How many have high school aged children? Excellent. Okay, so what Holly and I described to you, once she gets back after Ashley has spoken, will be applicable to everyone here. Okay.
I can't hear her through her mouth.
I will say the last librarian that spoke went after Twitter ban instead of Zebra ban. She was like, you directly, I was following the tweet, she was like, you directly mentioned books that I didn't mention that are a topic of controversy. She's like, I don't appreciate that. You putting me like in the middle of the fire. The last librarian that spoke, she called me out. She was like, you're directly correlating. She said, I think you're doing this for clickbait. But if you'd like to discuss further, we can talk. Yeah. I was like, oh.
He's equal opportunity. News Observer already has a story out. Protesters urge WIC to stop requiring students to mask. That by our guy? Kern Week? Yeah. Yes, your friend. Your friend.
My best friend.
Yes. Some Wake County parents lobbied school leaders. Crowd of around 100, he calls it out. Who's Brian Grosser?
That was the guy that got all the little kids out there.
He quoted him, "These are not dead meats. This is your future." Well said. And then it's an old story.
Ashley Special.
Hey, that's great.
Good evening, my name is Ashley Setchell. I've been coming here for months to discuss my concerns regarding the toolkit and quarantining of 2 many healthy children in response to COVID. Since July 2021, I've attended 9 school board meetings, speaking at 6 of them when I was selected. I repeatedly asked you all if the toolkit followed statutory authority or was it a recommendation? Was contact tracing and quarantining of healthy children sustainable when schools were not equipped to do that? Why did the toolkit discriminate against unvaccinated children? What about natural immunity? Were you comparing to the mask optional districts and their successes? Lastly, I have been sounding the alarm regarding the negative behavioral health and educational impacts on our children. Unfortunately, my questions were never answered by this board. Thousands of unpaid hours have been spent by parents around this state seeking the truth. I have spent my time reaching out to the Wake County Health Department, the ABC Science Collaborative, the State Board of Education, and the North Carolina Commission for Public Health. I spoke with school boards and parents across this state, gave speeches at 3 Board of Commissioners meetings, personally met with NCDHHS, NCDPI, and last but not least, with numerous legislators at the General Assembly. Sometimes persistence pays dividends. Let's recap last week's events. The toolkit was updated again. Guess what? It was never a law, but a recommendation. The board and attorneys owe us an explanation for their misdirection. The quarantines and contact tracing just disappeared, and vaccine discrimination vanished, just like that. I had asked for metrics that would dictate our exit strategy. None were ever provided. What type of data supported last week's decision? Scientific data or political polling data? I'm a speech-language pathologist. I will convincingly argue with anyone that nonverbal communication is equally or more important than verbal communication. Toddlers and school-age kids need visual cues to learn social interactions and develop speech. They need facial cues to discern danger, happiness, and sadness. High school kids just want to see each other. That's normal. Many
special needs children and the hearing impaired lean heavily on nonverbal visual cues. I'm not here to bash you and say I told you so, or point out that you never course corrected from your decisions as new information became available. Now is the time to change your direction and fix the catastrophic educational and behavioral health declines caused by your decision. Becoming mask option at school is step number one. For all the time, money, and resources spent to mask, vax, contact trace, test, and quarantine, I implore you to equally try to repair the devastating loss of education and social interaction, the negative behavioral mental impacts, as well as the coming tidal wave of speech language deficits. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Alright, we're gonna skip Renee. Alright, she's happy FF. We'll catch up later.
I think she's the one.
Everyone, please stand up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Someone said ooh. Alright, everyone look around. This happened last time too. And if you're in District 1, raise your hand.
Joanne.
Oh my God.
There can be only one.
District 2. District 3. District 4.
Oh, no, sorry.
District 5. 6. 7. 8. I'm so sorry for you. 9. All right. So you guys see who you are. You can talk to each other after the show, or you can let some of the candidates up here if you'd like as well. All right. So you can sit down if you want to.
If people don't know, just actually.
Okay. Yeah. Does anyone want to map what their district is? I talked to myself earlier. But you can also talk to us here too as well.
At least the district as they stand today, right?
Yeah, the districts, yeah. We're gonna change that.
Hey folks, just so you're aware about voting this year, I am not allowed, I'm not allowed to share. I forgot we're being recorded here. You need to keep an eye on the school board and any tactics they might be trying to use this year to avoid accountability for their actions in 2022. Okay? It is imperative that we reach out to neighbors and those around us, whether it cannot be just a social media campaign. It cannot be. If we try to waste just a social media campaign, we will lose this election. You have to use your voice, and you have to talk to parents. You have to talk to neighbors, and it starts now. If we wait until July, we will lose the school board. And I promise you, there are actions being done as we speak to avoid accountability this year, and hope that parents will lose their passion for changing the school board in 2022. So I'm really imploring you to continue to keep the heat on the school board and make them aware of how they have forgotten families and they've forgotten parents. That it's imperative that we not only think about this today, but all the way through November. So I'm great. I know that this panel will do that. I know that all of you here will do that. But we need to get allies to be as vocal as we are. People are afraid to talk. People are afraid to say anything. They're afraid to be as vocal as Tracy has been or Ashley is up there, and they think that they can't speak as eloquently maybe as Ashley does, or they don't have the data that Tracy does. But all they need to do is be a concerned parent, and people are more than willing to talk one-on-one. I work out at Lifetime Fitness here in Cary. I cannot tell you how many times I run into a parent who stops me as I'm leaving and talks to me about schools. So people want to talk about these things. They may not want to be vocal and be here, but they want to talk about these things. So just be aware of that, please.
All right, so some people call it activism. I like to call it advocacy. I carried my children for 9 months, one of them a little bit longer than that, birthed them, and bottom line is, these are my kids. These are your kids. The decisions that they're making across the street may be good for the people who are afraid, or maybe the people who don't have good health, like the last speaker that we saw stand up but we didn't listen to. But the bottom line is, we as parents know what our child's health is. We know what their risk is. We know that there is more danger in getting hit by a car, or in a car accident and dying from that than there is from COVID, or even getting hospitalized from COVID, okay? So we're gonna show you a couple of real quick videos, and then Holly and I will equip you.
Sorry for the quality, but this is what we're fighting for.
Oh, I love
Sorry, not very loud.
So that was for the young ones, okay?
Everybody shut up! This is not an excuse for any of you freshmen and sophomores to disrespect your teachers. If I hear of anybody disrespecting teachers or staff tomorrow, that makes us look bad. We want this to be a peaceful, respectful movement. We are just trying to gain back our rights as citizens. We do not care about the teachers. In the end are just doing their jobs. It doesn't come from them. It comes from the state. Now, what we're hoping is that they kick us out. This sounds bad, but we're hoping that they kick us out, because they have to report that attendance to the state. And if the state sees a day where 100 or how many kids are here are absent, they're going to start asking questions. Our hope is we can get this statewide. Now, I might get in trouble for this, but the plan still stands for Wednesday. For tomorrow, I mean. Everybody is going to meet at the back row of the senior parking lot, and we're all walking into school with no mask on. You can get me in trouble, they can suspend me, I don't care. We're done with this. And obviously all of you are too. Shut up! Obviously all of you are done with the mask too. Now again, we're doing this peacefully and respectfully. If a staff member asks you to put a mask on, you say no thank you and keep walking. And if they kick you out, then go home. And if people need rides home, then some of the seniors, I'm sure we can start giving people rides home. Not it.
So I'm sure that he dropped some clues to you as to what we'd like to plan. We're not going to give the date because we want to yet. because we want to make sure that we have all of the details ironed out. I'm going to speak a little bit about the high schoolers and how they can make their statement. Holly's going to address the middle schoolers and the elementary schoolers. But first I want to ask you, how many of you have friends, parents, whose children, between the parents and the children, they don't want to wear the masks anymore? How many of you know people who would be interested in participating in this as well? How many of you know maybe 5 families that you can tell once we give the signal? Okay, all right, so we don't want this to just be Wake County, we want this to be the state, okay? Now, we know that there's awesome counties who have already gone mask optional, but we know that our county does not have the intestinal fortitude to do that because it's all political, right? So for high schoolers, if you have children, I love education. I advocate for education and everybody doing well in school. I believe that it gives everybody the opportunity to succeed in life, okay? With that said, block schedule or no block schedule, your children may or may not have quizzes or tests on the day that this is going to happen. We want to make sure that your children don't get zeros. So if they have a test or a quiz in period 3, they're done taking their test or their quiz, they go to period 4, off goes the mask. Just as the young man said, peacefully, don't get in trouble, don't fight, but you as parents need to be able to coordinate that with your child, that if they're not driving, that they have a ride home. If you can coordinate with other families, if you can be a driver to help pick up or bring people home, that is what we want to do, okay? If your child doesn't have a test or quiz that day, they can walk in without a mask. If they get stopped, excuse me, you don't have a mask on, that's okay, I don't need one. Okay, well, you're gonna need to come with me then. Okay. It's that simple, because I think if we get enough people at the schools to do this, the staff and the admins are going to understand that this is a bigger problem and more people are wanting to have the option of choosing whether or not to wear a mask, okay? So the way that you found out about this meeting tonight, that will be the way that we get the information out to you for the date, okay? So just, we'll contact you about that, all right?
Also, at the back of the room, there are the Free the Smiles business cards. That's the link to our Signal group. So if you want to stay up to date, I'm not on social media. Open North Carolina has stayed off of social media, but a lot of the people and the leaders inside of Open North Carolina are on social media, so that's how you're finding out about these events. But if you want to stay directly connected, that link, that QR code will take you straight to our Signal group, okay? And then we have the website too. So, and Tracy, did you share about the flyers that Jax created, that his daughter created?
I'll let Holly.
Okay, perfect.
Tracy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
My name's Kristen. I was actually going to grassroots this myself in the parking lot at the high school, Holly Springs High School, and gather some kids. I was wondering, does anyone know if it's against the law or anything, like if I, as a parent, were in the parking lot and help kids, kind of get them fired up and hand them a flyer and tell them what's going on?
Chad? Yeah. So Chad, would you mind sharing your experience at Douglas Elementary in the fall?
Repeat the question.
Hi.
Oh.
Yes, okay, so I'll make sure I understand the question. The question is, as a parent, what can you do or can you not do on the actual premises of the school property, right?
Correct.
You can do anything up to the point where they say, okay, stop. So the general rule of thumb, this trespass covers all concerns. So even if you're just there quietly, just asking simple questions to the administrators, they decide, okay, that's it, you gotta go. You gotta go. Correct, yes. So in response to that, what I did was I created some signs, and my 9-year-old, my wife, and some of my wonderful friends here, we sit on the sidewalk of Carpool. And that is what we did. So we stayed off the school premises. We still engage with parents, and actually had a lot of parents. Some would give us the bird and drive by. But then we had, I would never know who they are, but then we had some that actually would come back around. And one mom in particular came back around and stopped, and she actually communicated. We spoke for maybe 10, 15 minutes. So it was a very moving thing with Jessica. We were there, same thing.
What were you trying to accomplish?
Well, we were just trying to get equal education for all students, with or without a mask on. That was it. That was the goal.
And then my bigger concern is how do I keep my 14-year-old from actually leaving the family after I do this?
Well,
be partners.
yeah, I think discussion is very important. And so, I think I know kind of the estimation of date, but I can start having conversations now with them so that they understand, there's no recourse coming to them from you, and there should be no recourse coming to them from anyone else. Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Right.
So really quick, Chad left out. So Chad, what he was asking that day was what would happen if I dropped my student off without a mask at carpool. That was the basic goal, was what will the process be? What will the procedure be, right? And what he's saying is every school is different. So what I want you to understand is every school is different. Literally the principal at that school is making decisions on point in real time. We've experienced that at the school board meetings. I personally have been targeted. They really would like for me to stop attending. And so they were very picky about how I wore my mask, whether I wore a face shield, even though there wasn't a mask policy in place at times. So I encourage you, one thing that we advocate for parents to understand is start local, always start local. So you're going to start right there at your school building with your educators, your principal, carbon copy the area superintendent, carbon copy Kathy Moore in the emails that and you want it all in writing, okay? You want everything in writing because Chad ended up needing to file a grievance and he went through a very lengthy process in order to be allowed back on school property. There was one school board meeting that we actually had to miss him because they had said he wasn't allowed on any school property anywhere, even though the only place where he had done anything was Douglas Elementary. Okay?
Well, they like it how
That's right. So just say the ending of the story. The principal is no longer there. And also, he's gone. But also just keep in mind that these people are making $90,000 to $100,000 a year. So when you ask the question, why are you willing to do this? Well, it rings close to six figures. That's why.
And some.
Yeah, everything else, but it's a big part of it.
So this mic is working, but Holly is gonna just now share kind of expound on what Dr. Tracy said, and then after that we're gonna have a short time for like discussion or questions about that or anything else that was said today, and then there might be some people who want to speak also that we're gonna intermix.
Thank you. Holly again. So I just want to talk to you really briefly about what this might look like in a developmentally appropriate way for a child who is younger than 11, right? Really important. The first thing we want to do is no harm, right? We don't want to stress out or create any more trauma for a child. What does this look like for a young child? You know, it looks like you getting together with a group of parents, like-minded, holding hands together a couple days before, asking your child their thoughts, their feelings, talking about what's going to happen, and planning and predicting with your child, right? The more we can plan and predict and talk about what's going to happen next and what you're going to say, the less stress and worry and anxiety we create for young children. And that's the big thing that we want to do. So this might look like going in the day of with them and saying, Mommy and Daddy are going to walk to school with you today. Today we're going to talk to the principal and the grown-ups about you going in and not wearing a mask today and breathing the fresh air. And we're going to have a little conversation about that. And this is what could happen, and this is what could happen. And if this is what happens, this is what we'll do. You're going to be safe. You're going to be protected, not with a mask, but you're gonna be all these things. You're gonna be, and then giving them the tools to really, to know how to share how they're feeling, just all of the things that you're normally doing. So what it would look like would be a very different, of course, in Tracy, and we would never, ever force the child, if the child shows any sign of stress, worry, anxiety, we back off, right, as parents. You may have a bit different, your advocacy may look a little bit different at that point. So, just the number one thing I'd walk away with is planning and predicting with the young children, getting the children holding hands together, the parents going in together in the elementary school. For middle schoolers, it'll look a little bit in between what it looked like for elementary and middle. You can give them the choices. It's a great opportunity for adolescents to practice, or growing adolescents to practice autonomy and independence, right? They might have a list of things. What if they say this to me? Maybe they'll write down some things they feel comfortable saying. No, thank you. Or I choose not to today. Or I'd like to get my education without a mask today. Or, if you feel uncomfortable, please call mom. I'd like you to call my mom and dad. I don't know. Always, that's what they'll say. So just some things that we're going to work on together will help get these messages out the day before, so you are not the day before, but help you have some tools. I just want to talk to you about the young kids and how that's going to look a little bit different. If you have any questions about that, feel free to come up to me afterwards as well.
I have a question. I have teenagers, and that's like uncharted territory. Very terrifying as a parent. One is very different than the other. One feels very comfortable in her mask, and the other is afraid to get in trouble and afraid that there's going to be blowback. They're 4.0 students, they do well in school, but they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. And so anything I do that embarrasses them as an advocate, it comes back on me. How would you navigate that?
Since I have angsty teenagers who their personalities change like on a dime.
Yes, they do.
So what I would say is, if they don't want to participate, that's okay. We need you to help the families, the other families, the friends that you have whose children do want to participate. And when you talk to those people and you find out who they are, then you can have that conversation with your kids, right? You can say, you know what, guess what? I talked to so-and-so, the neighbor down the street. Their child doesn't want to wear a mask. Would you feel more comfortable if you had other friends in your class, in your group, right? And if they don't, that's okay. Again, it's not about peer pressure to wear a mask, and it's not about peer pressure to not wear a mask. It's to give every single family the choice, right? Does that help?
That helps, but they're just afraid that they're being trouble. I think
So,
that's just that.
right, so what I would also say too is, you want to make sure that they don't get suspended so that it doesn't affect their records, so that if they want to go to college, there's not, right? You don't want to go down that road. And that's what you say, is if this is something you want to do, guess what? The day that you go to school, whether you ride the bus or get a ride, I'll be right outside. I'll be right outside the door, so that when they say you can't be here, I will be here to pick you up. You can also say, guess what? You have your phone, record everything. Record everything. Because I can tell you as a parent who has advocated for my children who have medical mask exemptions that have yet to be honored, medical mask exemptions that were signed by an MD, their pediatrician. Wake County, the way that they do things is very shady. They'll do things in writing when they want, but then they will call you when they don't want to have it in writing. So if your child has a phone, make sure it's with them, make sure it's charged, and make sure that they are, again, being civilly disobedient, respectful to the adults, right? We do want to teach respect, but that way we also have a record in case anything goes wrong. Because ultimately, there are babies, they're not the schools, and it's our job to protect them.
Okay, so I'm gonna pretend I'm Mari Ulrich. Does anyone else have a question? I'll come to you. I wanna hold the microphone like I'm Mari.
Follow up on that for the high schoolers, maybe middle schoolers, about what can they do or repercussions. it's gonna sound bad, you're not actually worried about academics unless there's a big test or something. I'm worried about sports, because in our school, we have had coaches bench students from games for not wearing their mask in class. And that is wrong. And I have pushed back and asked, well, what happens to the kids that don't play sports? Why is this not being punished in an equal way? Why is it being punished at all? But if you're going to, why is it not equal? This gets back to discrimination against unvaccinated. This is a problem, and it is spring sports season. Tryouts are this week for high school.
Well, I'm filing a grievance. File a grievance, file official grievance. I think that's one thing that I would do that would take action and, you know.
There's not really good answers for every
Yeah.
situation. There's I mean that's just the I mean you talk about political landscape or you talk about messaging, whatever you want to say. There's not a great answer for everything or a how to. Unfortunately, the only answer is to get rid of masks, and that's really the only answer that you can come with. They may get rid of masks in schools, but find another way to keep masks on in some other areas. It's just about pushing the narrative and really about messaging. So you talk about what can we do with our teens in schools and what can we get away with on school grounds. We have to be aware of what the message is. I'm sure there are things that you personally believe in that you should, like I met with a group today that really wants to bring Bible study back into school. Well, in Wake County, that's not something that a school board candidate can run on, for instance. So we have to understand kind of the political landscape and kind of what we're going to navigate toward. If you want to get rid of masks in sports events, you just have to get rid of masks in schools. You can't fight for one and not the other. It really is just fighting off.
But to answer your question, the tryouts are this week. Yeah. So your kids should be fine.
They'll still get benched, in theory, could get benched, or
Right,
not get moved up to varsity. That's what's gonna keep some of the kids
But
from
for
doing
what's, for the
That's
timing of
what we
everything, the kids will be fine in terms of them being able to try out for the sports. Okay?
So I was just gonna say, I think like listening to all the the things that kids are afraid of not doing or whatever, at the end of the day, kids need to know the Constitution, so that they need to learn it and understand why they need to do what they're doing. But they need to know that short term, losing everything is okay, because otherwise their freedom is what they lose long term. And so forget the sports, forget benching, everything is worth losing so that we can defend freedom. And that is all they need to do. Freedom and lose everything else, and you win.
Right. And the other thing too is we want to make sure that these masks never come back.
Exactly.
Ever.
It's only if you're gonna
Ever. So once we get the masks off this year, then we will be working on the Parents' Bill of Rights, and we will make sure that that's down the road. Did anybody else want to answer that question about sports? And I get it. I understand too, because kids are not getting scholarships because they haven't been able to participate in sports. I mean, it's a domino effect.
I'm not gonna make an observation, if I might. It's ironic and very interesting. I'm sitting next to a friend that back in 2008 we met and we started a group called Wake Schools Community Alliance, and we were all up in arms about the reassignment problem back then, and that was the big momentous move that got all the parents upset, right? And I was out of the public schools for a while. I did some homeschooling. Now I started a charter school in Valley Springs with 7 other people, and got my Springs Prep. Charter school did that. And now I've got a high schooler to start freshman year, and she wanted to go back to traditional school. She wanted to try it. So I'm back in Wake County and drinking on the fire hose. But I just wanted to say it's really interesting and wonderful to see another round of parents, and this is the issue of the day, right? This is the massive issue of the day. And I think it's great that you're thinking that don't let your guard down. I'm just telling you, it's going to be something else. And they're gonna. My instinct and not having followed this too closely and what they're doing over there, they're gonna see the calendar and they're gonna go, oh crap, we gotta pull these mandates because we're gonna have big election coming up. Just like
So I can address that real quickly. I can tell you that the Raleigh mayor will be making a statement shortly. And I can tell you that the Wake County Commissioners will be making a statement. They are in lockstep with the Board of Education. Right.
So my point, my observation is that I hope that you can make a commitment not only to this mask, but put the same energy 2 weeks
That
ago
is the goal.
into this election, because
That is the goal.
we need 5 to win. Yeah.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And it's
one Steve isn't going to be able to.
But
survive.
from my point of view, you know, in terms of the elections and all of that, you know, there are a lot of people who feel very strongly about the masks, just like they feel very strongly about the vaccine, just like they feel very strongly about insert whatever else. The most important thing to me is that we continue to find the values, the things that are important to parents, and that we continue to build the momentum on what we're doing for masking.
And the trust, we gotta build trust and teamwork. Absolutely.
All right, and I don't know if there's questions for any other people, so we're also gonna ask everybody. Anyone else has an answer to any of those questions?
I just had one more last answer. You know, I have a daughter, 9 years old, and this week their school, Pine Springs, went mask optional. She said to me, "I'm afraid, Mom, if I take my mask off, they're gonna judge me. They're gonna call me names. They're gonna not talk to me." And so we talked about planning and predicting for those consequences. What would she do? What would she feel like? And I think for any child at any age, it's just like what you said. This is a consequence. What are some other consequences of decisions that we make? Just sitting down and having that back and forth open conversation and validating the feelings, the fears, the concerns of either choice, and hearing your child and listening to them and knowing that whatever they decide, you support them. But knowing that, yeah, this is a consequence that could happen, and this is what could happen. And you know, but honestly, there are people making decisions, living in so much fear, they think that they will be arrested and go to jail for not instating a mask mandate. This is a board at the school that they think they will be arrested, and that's a consequence for them. So that's why they're making these decisions. And the children, you know, they're living in trauma-based mind control for 2 years. So they're not thinking in the prefrontal cortex right now, right? Because they've been told to be afraid for 2 years. So we've got to get them out of the brainstem, back into planning and predicting in the prefrontal cortex. This is a reality of what will happen. This is really what can happen. What are your biggest fears? What if that happens? Okay, so we can talk them down. And that's, I think, one of the greatest gifts you can give a child at any age.
Is there a way to like have this kind of atmosphere with kids, and maybe like they can collaborate and you know they feel like we're not alone?
I think there are 8 of us out there.
They're so quiet. They're angels. But like to make it like they are in the seats and they're like presented to, and maybe like what you said, planning and predicting.
I know I showed mine in the videos.
Yeah, I showed mine in the videos.
So one of the visions of Open North Carolina is to have a forum for parents and students, specifically a celebration once the masks are off. There's an incredible person named Dr. Vanderbeek who wrote a book called The Body Keeps Score. The remediation of the situation of the last 2 years is going to take at least a decade for us to make an impact. And so parents and students, when we collaborate with you, you all will be equipped. There's going to be a lot of speech therapy that will be needed. We don't have the professionals available right now to really even handle the speech therapy situation, because right now there are children that have been born into COVID whose parents have been masked, and you heard Ashley speak about that in her public comment tonight. Specifically, there's developmental delays, of course the prefrontal cortex, social delays, because you know just even peekaboo has been withheld from infancy, right? So I would just encourage you all to stay up to date. We do plan to have an event. Holly has been instrumental in getting that launched. She's reached out to Dr. Vanderbeek's team, and we'd love to have you all join us. Share with your friends like Tracy said. We're really looking to multiply. The other vision for Open North Carolina is we need 208 parents for the 208 precincts in Wake County. So people like Steve Bergstrom and Becky and Chad, who plan to run for school board, they're going to need teams of people for their campaigns. So when they file in July, we would love for them to have one passionate parent from every precinct in their school district to really get the word out in those neighborhoods, because that's what it's gonna take. Steve ran for school board in 2020 and he did a great job. How many votes did you get?
I don't know.
I believe it's over 20,000.
In my district, there's 80,000 people that voted, which is 20,000 more than Aaron Parade's House district alone. So they're large districts. Can I address this election thing?
Absolutely,
Okay.
please.
Does anybody know what the Board of Commissioners here in Wake County did arbitrarily a few months back, maybe October? They extended their own terms. Did you know that?
Yeah, wow.
Did you know that it is not against North Carolina law for a board to extend their own terms? So,
Steve, why would
yes.
they do that with this election?
That's an excellent question. Why would they not?
They actually
There was ever a time they needed to do it.
They tried. So they went to the General Assembly.
Okay, but
Your school board members went to the General Assembly and actually tried to extend their term last year. And Aaron Beret was the stopgap for that. So we're looking for, that's why Aaron specifically looked at the staggered elections. And while there might be pros and cons to that, ultimately they were looking to bump it up, which would have meant that we would have gone another year without an election. So it's really crucial that we pay attention to what's going on at the General Assembly and not just what's going
Lana,
on.
that legislation has not been passed.
That's correct.
That legislation is being started by two House members, North Carolina, that live in a different district. And so
Forsyth County is one of them.
if Wake County pushes the issue, then I guarantee that Wake County will be taken off the bill. And therefore Wake County will be left to its own devices. Okay? So just be aware of that. While that effort has been in the works, there is every opportunity for this board to extend their own terms.
But the only way the power is still vested in the people. So if that happens, there's still power. Like
They can arbitrarily extend their terms to 2023. And the power is invested in the people, correct, but will the people be as upset in 2023 as they are in 2022? That's the question, first of all. Second of all, they're trying to extend not only their terms, but they're trying to make them staggered 4-year terms. So they are also trying to work with the NCGA to implement a 5-year term starting in 2023.
What's that, NCGA?
So that they
What's that?
What's that? Yeah, North Carolina General Assembly, I'm sorry. So that they can get to those staggered terms. So you have to realize there's some wheeling and dealing going on right now, and they are doing everything in their power to avoid accountability from voters and parents this year. That is why these elections are so critical, because we may never have another time where we can actually hold them accountable for their policies or bad policies and the damage they've done to families and education here.
Can I say one thing? Real quick, that's why I think the accountability is not on November 8th, and we need to be clear. The accountability is while you're in the job. And if you're not doing your job, like, forget election, because we just let them rig them every single time. So it's like, we need to hold them accountable now, because right now they're failing. So now is when they need to be out, right? Like, you don't need to wait till election.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I think just to bring us back onto agenda, so that we do have public comment, because yes, there is sometimes an agenda. There sure is. Yeah, there sure is. And we have not heard from anyone other than ourselves. So I would like to make a motion that we get started with public comment. Okay, so moved. Vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. Amanda, go ahead.
There is Terry Williams.
Oh.
Yeah!
As a reminder, it's the same kind of rules, right? 3 minutes, Amanda, you have your timer.
Can everybody hear me right here?
Yeah.
All right, Amanda's going to start your clock. Okay, very good. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. It's the first time I've ever been to a meeting like this. I had my wife Amy, just stand up, Amy, so everybody can look at you. She's what I guess y'all call one of the mama bears.
Yes.
So I think she gave me a choice. I'm not sure if it was about coming out tonight. I'm here, so I think I made the right choice. I tried to stay out of this stuff. Give you a little background. I grew up in Cary as my father and father. So I've been here a long time, and it has changed a lot. We've got a lot of wonderful people from all over, but it ain't all good. I also drove a Wake County bus a few years ago for a short while. I hadn't been on a bus since the late 70s, and I was absolutely shocked at the lack of discipline and help. We don't need silence bus drivers. I know y'all heard that guy before, but you've got like a mobile daycare going 45 miles an hour down the road with one dog, no seatbelts, no discipline because those folks weren't enforcing. When I went to an orientation for new bus drivers, I thought it was going to be a safety-oriented type of discussion. The lady that was talking to us, the first words out of her mouth is, we want every single child attending Wake County schools because we get like $8,000 and something per person. The only thing this school board, in my opinion, has done correctly over the last couple of years is they dramatically increased attendance or enrollment at private schools and homeschools. And that is a direct reflection of their failure. Now, to give you a little background, me and Amy have two beautiful 10-year-old daughters who attend a wonderful school, Vance Elementary. Our son goes to Moore Square in the 6th grade. He's 12 Cooper. We don't know what that school's like because we've stepped foot in it one time. When we had to apply for that school, we weren't allowed to go to any of the schools to check it out. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that it's a wonderful school, but we don't know that. I know he hasn't been happy, and my heart broke. I spent 27 years in the military, retired a few years ago, and I didn't get married until I was 46, and became a dad on my birthday.
You're welcome.
And I was in Iraq at the time. But I retired. I wanted to spend, as an older parent, we all know how fast life goes by. I wanted to enjoy my retirement. I carpool my kids. We take them to hockey. We take them to whatever they're into, gymnastics, riding horses. And it's the hardest job. I'm a stay-at-home mom now, right? Wife's in real estate. She works her butt off. I've been mad with them a lot. Leaving me at home with 3 kids. No. This is relevant. No. This is because look at where y'all are right here tonight. Why are you here? You're here because 8 people won't do their damn jobs.
Right.
Right? And here's the crazy thing. Last time I checked, who builds the schools? Who pays the teachers' salaries and benefits? And who pays the board members' salaries? So what does that make us? This makes us the boss. We've got the inmates running the prison. We're here. They're affecting our home life because they're not doing their jobs, and now we're having to get involved. You know, 3 times I stepped off an airplane in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Kuwait. If someone had told us, if they had gotten a half a world away in the dead of night, 130-degree temperatures, you go off to war, some of the best, most professional, decent people I'll ever be around. You don't know if you're coming home. If they had gotten us together in groups and told us that we had a 99.8% chance of coming home alive or not permanently disabled, we would have been the happiest people on the planet. This virus, we've been lied to. It was never. Early on, because we're good people and we love each other and we care for our families. We believe in government. We believe in freedom. We want to do what's best for our country. We gave them the benefit of a doubt, but we were lied to. Okay, once you put all these crazy measures in place, sure, they made it sound like a bowl. It wasn't, though, was it? 2 years later, when you've got entire states open for business for a year, bodies are not piling up on the streets. The people least affected by this are our children. Does anybody know what waterboarding is?
Yes.
You know, I just happened to think about that. kids walking around with this thing strapped to their face sweating, and I got so upset.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, we have a
The point is,
Yes,
the battle is here. Not in Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, damn sure ain't in Ukraine. It's in our front yard on our doorstep. Get involved.
Thank you for your service. And thank you for safely transporting kids at that time of your life. Thank you very much.
Adina,
Me?
you signed up to speak.
Did I? No.
Is there any other person that would like to make comment? Is there any other person with a question?
You know what? I'll just say one thing actually. Can I just say something?
I know you're gonna be set to the
I mean,
timer.
it literally is like just one thing. It's, you know, I'm not a mom. I aspire to be a mom, but I tell people there's no way that I will have children in this society knowing what we're enduring and what our kids are going through. There's just no way. So in order for us, you know, I tell people like Jason here, he doesn't have kids. The people that don't have kids are not emotionally invested, and we're the ones that need to stand up and fight with you all, right? And so freedom is at like just one step away from us losing it. If we lose freedom in this country, the whole world is gonna suffer, and we will never get freedom back. So everything is worth losing to protect our freedom. Everything is worth losing, everything, in order to protect our freedom. And the way we do that is we stand up boldly and we don't back down to tyrants. So all the children need to know, you know what, it might be cool to wear a mask because you have more friends. Too bad. You're gonna take your mask off and you're gonna walk into school. Because if I lose my freedom because of you, child, it's not okay. So that is what we need to do. Freedom first, America first too.
I will say about that comment though, it was a long time ago when I was a teenager, but I would not agree with that. So to a teenager, they are not going to be thinking that. So we might want a different strategy for the
That's
mascot.
what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have a question? Yes. Do you want to come up here? Or do you want me to be more informative?
But my wife had some comments.
Oh,
Over there.
come on.
Come on up. Come on up, please do.
Okay, so I just didn't really plan to say anything, so I don't know how this will go, but to predate Kristen's thing, I started an advocacy group with another lady, and we sued the Wake County school system, and we went all the way to the state Supreme Court, and we earned choice for all citizens of Wake County, and that's why to this day you have choices for schools, and the school board manipulated it. And at the time, we had children in high school, and they did kind of get some repercussions from teachers and some kind of pushback, but they're now 27, 28 years old, and all of them went to great colleges and were successful and learned a very valuable lesson about what it means to stand up for what's important to you. So, again, I think I really admire everybody here who's, you know, here doing what's right for their children, and I would encourage you to kind of remain active, like Kristen said, and when this kind of ends, like the gentleman who's running for school board said, they might drop the mask mandates, but it really is important to elect people that have values that align with us, and in order to do that, you've got to be very organized, and like you all were saying, reach out to your neighbors, start now, and really rally people to, you know, help you and to help us get a school board that's focus is on the education of the children, because so much of what happens in this county is not about education of children, but about philosophical ideas that are not effective. So, you know, thanks for all you're doing, and I hope that you're all successful and can finally make a difference.
Thank you.
And one more comment. And another thing. I have a kid that's like 10 and a half years younger than our oldest, and he is still in high school. And I think the key thing is if you can get their friends, you know, rally to do it. That what, you know, it's all about your friends. So if you get them excited and make it fun, then that's what'll really make it happen.
As long as your children know that you have their back,
Right.
They will be strong, they will be courageous. You know, I said this at the first meeting that Lana invited me to, and that is courage is contagious. I like that. Right? Right. We've got to allow our children to spread their wings, be courageous. They're gonna be our leaders. Yep. Right? Our doctors too.
Okay, so at this time, are there any further questions for anyone else on the panel?
I just want to say thank you to the panel yet again. I mean, seriously, I know y'all are the backbone. I look forward to always your emails, your posts, and everything. Thank you.
And if you don't, I think we didn't discuss the toolkit updates tonight. So just real quick before we kind of get moving on, I just want to read to you the legal interpretation of what the toolkit changes mean. Because the big crutch has always been, if you're sitting next to a kid and they don't have a mask and you have a mask and some cousin somewhere tests positive, then your kid can't go to school. So just to, this is a legal interpretation. So NCD-HHS released an updated version of the Strong Schools North Carolina Toolkit today. The changes in the toolkit are reflected in red text. The most significant change is that individual contact tracing and exclusion from school of asymptomatic people after an identified exposure, regardless of location, is no longer recommended. While it was released today, the changes will not go into effect until February 21st. Here are the key points, and so here's number 1. Effective February 21st, 2022, exclusions will no longer be required for any asymptomatic students and staff who are exposed to COVID-19. The distinction between mask required and mask optional districts has been removed. This means that school districts will not be required to exclude individuals due to exposure, regardless of whether the exposed individual was vaccinated, was previously infected within the past 90 days, had a mask exposure, had a household exposure, or was in a mask optional or mask required setting. So that has been the crutch. That has been the number one argument that every board member across every state has claimed. So as you're preparing your children and preparing yourselves, for me, once again, like being armed with the information that's actually in the toolkit. So for me, I would start emailing the administrators, the teachers, and say, hey, here's the update. So tell me again why my child cannot go to school without a mask on. For me, that's the ground game. And you start laying that ground game so that you're documented, asking your educators why they are going to ignore the DHHS guidance. I think it's very important that you start there. So everyone, email your teacher, email your principal. The toolkit is printed. This variation is this interpretation is top secret stuff. I don't know if I can send it anybody, but the information is in the toolkit. So just make sure that you arm yourself. And I think that was the biggest thing, right? Tracy, am I forgetting anything on the toolkit of like the high notes to really make sure that everyone understands?
Yeah, like Ashley said, they took out contact tracing, quarantining. They're not discriminating against the children who are unvaxxed.
Yes,
I don't know why. It might be because Omicron is escaping this vaccine. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's usually
Yeah.
Question. Why are they still doing the testing through Mako? Like, both my kids just got emails that they're offering it at their school.
Yeah.
So if contact tracing doesn't matter, I mean, what's
because they have a contract with Mako Medical. That's why. So they will continue the optional, if you want to opt in testing, which I can tell you, I actually got the numbers, and it's less than 5% of all Wake County schools, or all Wake County students are participating.
Tracy, do you have that number for teachers? Are they tested weekly too?
That number includes staff. Okay. So less than 5% of students and teachers have opted into that program. And again, bottom line is,
Nobody cares.
if you test,
Nobody cares.
then you run the risk of being excluded from school. So why would you want to do that if your number one goal is to attend school, and if you're not immunocompromised, if you're not immunosuppressed, if you're not worried about
the repercussions that, that come with being sick with COVID.
Just to be fair, to the other side, some parents want to do that. And we are not telling them, we are not telling them what to do.
That's
So
right.
we just want to do what we want to do. Exactly.
I just want to go to the toolkit information because I feel like that's that one paragraph right there, line opener number 1, that was the crutch. And so that crutch is now removed as of February 21st. So I don't.
But that doesn't mean that we don't hold them accountable for their votes the whole time.
Well, I agree, and I think I think we're getting into the election year, and I think the worst possible case scenario is that now we start getting quiet because we hear the politicians are going to start coming, right? The cavalry this year is going to show up. They didn't know what to do 2 years ago, but this year they're going to show up. So I think if you remain silent and hope that some politician's going to roll in and save our children, you are absolutely wrong. So I think that you start now. You hold every single person accountable. Every person who is going to be elected is in power, put in power. Hashtag no free pass. Like I think that's the way it has to be.
So as a parent said earlier, there is more than just masks. That's just the first issue. There are so many things that this has brought on that the school's trying to pass medical procedures on our children. They don't have that right. I could get all into the budget mismanagement that I've been delving into. That's very angry. There's so many other issues. It is not just the masks. It's just the first one. It's the surface. So, get involved. There's so much to do between all of us that we need everybody involved.
So, I'll just say one more thing. Sorry, Amanda. And that is this. The school board has missed a huge opportunity to partner with parents the last 2 years. They've shut us out. They've ignored us. They've laughed at us. They've had the newspaper and other media call us names. They don't respond to records requests. Okay, again, they are working because of our children. They have jobs because of our children. So they missed the opportunity to be leaders. It's time for us to put people in place, once we get the masks off the kids, to put leaders in place who will start partnering with us.
All right, thank you very much. If you guys have any more questions, we'll probably be up here for a few minutes. And if you want contact information for us or anybody else, just let us know. Thank you so much for coming.
Sydney, how'd it go?
Did you guys see it or no?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.